All right, let's dive into a classic story pretty much everyone has heard of, King Midas and the Golden Touch. It's an old tale from ancient Greece, but it's really a warning about a king, a wish, and a very, very shiny problem that got way out of hand. So let me ask you this. What if everything you touched turned to solid gold? I mean, really think about it. The phone in your hand, that cup of coffee, your chair, poof, solid gold. Sounds pretty amazing, right? Like a dream come true? Well, for one king, this wasn't just a dream. It became his reality. So let's meet our main character, King Midas. Now, this guy had it all. We're talking unimaginable luxury, more money, more treasure than he could ever possibly spend. But, even with all that, there was a pretty big problem. See, deep down, he was never really happy. All the piles of gold in his treasure rooms, they just weren't enough. He always felt like something was missing. And this feeling, this need for more, all came down to one single thing about him. He was just greedy. You know what that means, right? It's when you always want more and more and more. For Midas, it wasn't just a small want. It was like a giant hunger that took over his whole life. And this one desire, well, it's what kicks off the entire story. And then, one day, something happened that would change his life forever. Midas was doing what he did best, hanging out in his treasure room, counting his gold, when a very unexpected visitor showed up with an offer he couldn't refuse. It was the Greek god Dionysus, and he showed up to thank Midas for a good deed he'd done. As a reward, Dionysus offered him one single wish. Anything he wanted. Now, for a guy obsessed with gold, yeah, the choice was sadly pretty easy to guess. He didn't even think about it for a second. Nope, he just blurted it out. I wish that everything I touch turns into gold. He didn't consider the consequences. He just saw the ultimate prize. And just like that, the wish was granted. In a first, wow, it was incredible. The king was overjoyed. He thought, this is it. I've finally done it. It really seems like his greed had hit the jackpot. Of course, he had to try it out right away. He sprinted into his garden, touched an apple tree, and boom, solid gold. He started running around like a kid in a candy store, touching everything he could see, just watching his whole world turn into this shiny golden playground. He was just so happy. He thought he'd finally found the secret to being happy forever. But that amazing feeling, it was about to disappear. Fast. The problem started when he got hungry. He sat down to eat, and that's when he realized, uh-oh, big problem. Every time he tried to take a bite of food or a sip of water, it turned into cold, hard gold in his mouth. Can you imagine? He was starving with a whole table of golden food he couldn't even eat. So that hunger and frustration quickly turned into real sadness. And this is where the story gets truly heartbreaking. He was about to find out the real price of his wish, and it was going to be absolutely devastating. His daughter, Marigold, who he loved more than anything in the world, saw how upset he was. So she did what any loving kid would do. She ran up to give him a big hug to make him feel better. And in that one moment, she turned into a cold, lifeless, golden statue. Just like that, all the happiness Midas felt about his gold was gone. All that was left was this terrible, intense sorrow. In trying to get everything he wanted, he just lost the one thing he actually loved. And in that awful moment, it all clicked. He finally understood. His daughter,
She was worth more than all the gold on the planet. He just started crying and screaming, begging for Dionysus to come back and take this terrible wish away.
Well, Dionysus heard him, and feeling sorry for the king, he appeared again. He gave him a way to fix everything. And the solution wasn't some other big magical wish. It was actually super simple. Just 3 easy steps involving the water in a nearby pond. Midas didn't wait for a second. He had learned his lesson the hard way. He finally understood what was really, truly important in life. That terrible moment had completely changed what he cared about. So, what do you think was the very first thing he did? You guessed it. He ran and sprinkled that water on the golden statue of his daughter. And the second she turned back into his little girl, he just grabbed her and hugged her. He was so happy. And right then, he promised himself he would never, ever be greedy again. And you can really see how much he changed, right? At the beginning of the story, he was greedy and never happy, and he thought gold was the most important thing. But by the end, he was thankful, happy with what he had, and he knew that love was way more valuable. It's like he became a completely different person. So what's the big lesson here? Well, there are a few. First, being happy with what you have is the real treasure. Second, you really got to think before you make a big wish or a big decision. And most important of all, the people you love are worth more than any amount of gold. So let's go back to that first question I asked you, but think about it a little differently now. If you had the golden touch, what do you think it would teach you? What would you learn about what's really important in life? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for listening.